I'm going to start from the beginning. Okay. Welcome to this webinar, Net Zero from the Inside Out, how CIB are doing it, happening as part of the campaign on responsible business. This is how I moved my business forward. We will start by showing a short video about the campaign. The objective of the campaign is to build awareness and share know-how about responsible business conduct that is embedded in the vision and day-to-day operations of the business, rather than a one-off act or a marketing stint. Today, we will hear from sustainability leader of the bank that is actively leading on those efforts, speaking about their experience and measures to reduce the ecological footprint and how this connects with the green bonds tool. And then we will follow by Q&A. We will learn about principles of responsible banking, the Net Zero Banking Alliance, green bonds, and reducing ecological footprint from sustainability leaders of the CIB that is actively leading on those efforts. Today we have two distinguished speakers from the CIB. Dr. Dalia Abdelkader, she's the Chief Sustainability Officer of the Commercial International Bank, CIB. She's been spearheading the discipline of sustainable finance in Egypt since 2003. She assumes several roles, including representing the MENA region in UNEP FI Banking Board, Principle of Responsible Banking. She also represents Africa in the Net Zero Banking Alliance Steering Committee, and she's also a member of the Regional Advisory Board for Sustainable Finance. Now, Rami Kassab, Sustainability Innovation Manager, also at CIB. He joined CIB in 2014, is currently part of the Sustainable Finance Department, responsible for reporting on CIB environmental footprint, which is evolving to an ecological footprint, implementing sustainable innovative solutions, and integrating environmental and social governance, ESG, aspects into the bank's operation. Now, we're going to start with a poll, just to sort of check the awareness about the ecological footprint. Okay, so you really have almost equal between you know a lot, and I'm unaware, and then you have like a big bulk, 40%. I'm aware, but not sure how to use it in this. So before I pass it to Dr. Dalia, I will. She asked us to sort of put a small, brief video about the ecological footprint. Can you share the video, please? Okay, with that, I will. It's a pleasure to have Dalia with us as the first speaker. Dalia, CIB has been a founding signatory of the UNEP FI Principle of Responsible Banking in 2019, and also a founding signatory of the Net Zero Banking Alliance in 2021. So how do these frameworks fit in the CIB's strategy? How do they help the financial institutions to improve their carbon ecological footprint?
Thank you, Dr. Ali. Thank you for the introduction. And I really appreciate the audience being with us. There is nothing more gratifying than discussing new concept as the ecological footprint with the students community and corporates. So we're having fresh minds and practitioners. And I think this is the best space, which I appreciate the opportunity allowed by the American University in Cairo and Business Forward. Before I address the principles for responsible banking and the Net Zero Banking Alliance, I would like to attend the vote and the poll outcome discussing the ecological footprint. The ecological footprint, I'm sure the literal meaning or the literal explanation is available there for anyone to browse. What I want to bring to our discussion here is the strategic relevance of the ecological footprint and how ecological footprint is central for any corporate that seeks to sustain its growth. So it's very much related to our growth. The problem is it's easier said than done. Why? Because I mean, simply speaking, ecological footprint is how much a corporate takes from the environment to generate its profit. Usually in our financial reports, we issue our profits, but we do not report on our environmental footprint. How much do we cause, how much pollution do we cause, climate, global emissions, biodiversity depletion, resource depletion, water contamination. This is not accounted for. And we are not used to it. Why? Because our modern accounting does not account for anything except profit making. Environmental cost is usually referred to as externalities. So it's external to our system, it's external to our policies and to our reporting practice. However, we couldn't get away with it because right now we are seeking the environmental destruction and climate change that all corporates are suffering from. So as Einstein eloquently phrased it, not everything that can be counted counts, and not everything that counts can be counted. And this is exactly what's taking place. We can count money, but we cannot count oxygen, we cannot count well-being, we cannot count health. So unfortunately, we are left with a dysfunctional accounting practice that keep the environmental impact outside our growth equation. However, this cannot be sustained. And here I would like to recall back in 1972, an MIT team led by Donella Meadows, they came up with a very seminal report titled The Limits to Growth. In 1972, the assumption was that if humanity sustains its level of production and consumption, we will reach zero growth in 100 years. Why? Because the Earth has a biocapacity. The growth pattern that depletes resources, it makes it a built-in inconsistency that we will not be able to sustain our growth any further. And I would say they were rather optimistic, because if we look at the world as we live in today, the world economy is witnessing an unprecedented sluggish growth. We are suffering climate change risks, an unprecedented threat. Right now, with the level of production and consumption and the economic activities that mankind is undertaking, we need 2.7 Earth. So the Earth is not enough to sustain our growth. So we are already witnessing the limits of growth. And as we can see now, we are witnessing climate change risks. It's the most detrimental risk that would ever face humanity. So in a sense, the ecological footprint is a way for corporates to report on their environmental cost, because we cannot get away with it. There will come a time that we are currently witnessing whereby we cannot sustain our economic cycle and our productivity because of so many risks, environmental risks that were caused by our malpractices in the first place. So this is the ecological footprint. Now we are, as corporates, we are, it's becoming mandatory to measure our carbon footprint and make sure it is close to zero. This is to answer what is the ecological footprint, so how much we take from the environment. Answering the question about the Principles for Responsible Banking and the Net Zero Banking Alliance, I think CIB started its sustainability journey almost 5 or 6 years ago, and realized early on that sustainability is a mega trend, and that climate change and sustainability are mega trends that urge a fundamental revision of how business are being done. And this is not an easy task, because now that we understand the concept, changing our businesses and our policies and our operations is not something easy. And what we're bringing here today is the experience that has been there for the last 5-6 years. Rami, my colleague, has witnessed it since the start in 2017. And we're trying to bring the recipe or the shortcut for the experience. In time, we realized that we need to join global frameworks to learn how to do it, because it's not easy for banks and it's not easy for corporates unless you join hands with other actors and other peers to learn how to redress the policies and the operations within the bank. The Principles for Responsible Banking, we were co-founders back in 2019. And I think it was very it was ironic that after 10 years, 10 years of the financial crisis, in 2018, banks realized that they need to come up with responsible banking principles. Actually, they came quite late after the stock markets and after insurance, because they issued their responsible principles back in 2006 and 2012. Banks realized it in 2018, and we issued the principles for responsible banking. The most important principle that I would like to frame in this discussion is the impact. Banks are required to report on the impact of the lending operations, their portfolios and the investments on the environment. We're not sensitive to that. We just lend and we make sure that the loans are paid back, and that the cycle is very much working for our interests, getting our money back, the principal and the interest, but we were never sensitive of the impact of our lending on the environment. Now we are very much conscious of that. We are starting this practice, and we are issuing the impact assessment report and target setting, because we need to know what are we doing right. And fortunately, there are lots of positive contribution to the environment that's already taking place with us as CIB or other banks. But at the same time, there are negative impact on the environment caused by our lending practice that we need to be minded of. So the most important thing in the principles for responsible banking is the issue of impact and the need to report on our impact and to make sure it is improved. The Net Zero Banking Alliance was in 2021, and it's a step forward because it's a commitment that we will reach net zero by 2050. Net zero as our operations and as our lending portfolio, which is very challenging. As to our operations, CIB fared well, and Rami will share with us how CIB was able to measure its carbon footprint. But mind you, when it comes to banks, we do not have a huge ecological impact, but the indirect impact evidenced by our lending portfolio is really what counts. So this is the challenge we're out to face.
Thank you, Dalia. CIB, I think you in particular, attended the COP26, and it would be very interesting if you could tell us what are the international outcomes from your point of view, and how the local regularity scene with regard to the ecological footprint is shaping up.
I think we all know that the outcome of COP26 is internationally, globally perceived is not as expected or not as aspired, because we were caught between protesters, young protesters, and governments, politicians intrigued in endless negotiations. However, there are quite a number of bright spots that took place in Glasgow, and mainly I would stress the rising role of the financial institutions. The GFANs, which is Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, has been formulated. What is the GFANs? It's the umbrella entity for the Net Zero Banking Alliance. The GFANs is a group of financial institutions, including banks, asset managers, asset owners, insurers. Their total capital rounds to $130 trillion, and they include 450 entities. So this is a very powerful alliance, $130 trillion in capital, that committed that they will not invest or lend to corporates unless they are conscious of their carbon footprint. So they are allocating and mobilizing this capital to net zero activities. So you can imagine the huge trajectory and momentum that will be created. So apart from protesters and politicians, the financial sector is the most potent actor that can promise or give hope that climate can be addressed. So the GFANs has been there. The Net Zero Banking Alliance is part of the GFANs, where CIB is a founding signatory. The second most important thing is that the IFRS, the International Financial Reporting Standard, has established its International Sustainability Standard Board, which will commit financial institutions to report on their environmental impact and climate change practices. So imagine that now, I was discussing at the beginning how our modern accounting marginalizes the environment. Now the IFRS is taking into consideration the impact of climate change and environmental destruction, and they will be core pillars in the reporting practices. So this is another, I would say, a milestone, a leapfrog in the system. I think another major development that took place was the network for greening the financial system, which includes central banks. Around 63 central banks agreed that they will commit their banks to report on climate change and environmental risk. So as you see, there is a huge momentum and compelling evolution in the role of the financial industry coming out of COP26. And I think this will be the base or the only hope whereby climate change risks and opportunities are captured. And we have to also to bring to the discussion Egypt's role in COP26. President Sisi had a seminal speech there, and he committed that by 2025, 50% of government projects will be environmentally friendly. And he made a couple of statements that were very much binding. And so the whole landscape is the financial industry worldwide is moving. The central banks, I would also like to bring to our discussion, Central Bank of Egypt and the Financial Regulatory Authority. Last July 2021, I think 2021 was a very important year. I mean, not only for COP26, a couple of months earlier, both regulators in Egypt issued sustainable finance guidelines. It was kind of voluntary when it comes to the Central Bank of Egypt. However, with regards to the Financial Regulatory Authority, it was mandatory. It's mandatory for all listed companies in the Egyptian Stock Exchange to report on climate change and environmental risk by 2022. So as you see, it's a very dynamic landscape. When I say that ecological footprint and environmental practices are key to corporate growth and for financial institutions or corporates, it's quite compelling. So we better start early, and that's why we're here at CIB, is to share our experience and to bring the shortcuts, the challenges, the opportunities, because there is no time for reflecting on the matter or considering it. So this is COP26. COP26, although less than expected, however, it has very encouraging signals that we should capture.
Okay. You've mentioned the issue of investees. I mean, how will the CIB use its leverage with investees to create a bigger impact? I mean, you're really talking about sustainability. It's really for a bank or for in general financial institution. It's about how do you incent your investees to sort of act more responsibly and more sustainably.
Thank you for bringing this into our discussion. I think managing the environment will never take place if you only focus on our systems or our reporting. It only takes how we connect with our clients and the investees to share the experience. And this is exactly what's going on. It takes two to tango. We will never be able, for banks, as I mentioned earlier, our ecological footprint is minimal compared to other industries or other corporates. However, our real footprint is in the thousands and thousands of projects that we have bankrolled and ultimately have polluted the earth. So how are we doing it right now is that we are raising awareness, conducting capacity building. We are, as we started our green bond, parallel to it, we introduced our sustaining sectors program, which is a sector-based capacity building program for transportation, for food and beverage, for tourism. It's still being, it's in the initial stages. We had just one round, but we are continuing it. So we need to educate our clients, not educate, share our knowledge with our clients and make sure that our products help them to decrease their carbon emissions. It's working very well, actually, because the minute we start communicating to with our clients, they start to see the business case of sustainability or of the ecological footprint. So it's not like we are dictating our terms or it's part and parcel of our risk mitigation measures, as much as it's opening new horizons for them to grow and to manage the risk as well. Because, if you show the construction sector how much sustainability and sustainable finance products enable them to decrease their expenses, manage their resources, energy efficiency, renewable energy, it will impact their bottom line. And on the other hand, sharing with them climate adaptation and mitigation projects, showing them how to avoid risks that they are bound to suffer from. In time, they get the message and they see that the value of changing the business practice, because sustainability and climate change in a nutshell is a mega trend. It urges a fundamental revision of business practices. And as I said at the beginning, this is not easy. And that's why all peers and all corporates should come together in a space like Business Forward or the AOC to share practice, because there is really no time. If there is one thing we're sure of, is that climate change is mandatory, it's inevitable, it's coming, and it's not in the horizons, as Mark Carney said, it's very much around us. We witness it day over day.
Thank you, Dalia. My last question is, when I've heard someone who was actually one of the gurus about the environment, and he was saying something very interesting about the net zero. He was saying it's not about saving the planet. The planet will exist. It's about saving humanity. Which, if you think about it, it's fantastic. It does make sense. We're talking about becoming an environment which is hostile for human beings. Now, an interesting topic always when you talk about net zero impact is the issue of just transition to a net zero. I'm talking about the social dimension that we really talk about. So I just wanted to get your view about this. How do you see looking at the social impact as well? And in specific, just transition to a net zero or a smaller ecological footprint?
Actually, your question reminds me of a very nice documentary that was narrated by Julia Roberts. It's very nice. It's very interesting. The main theme was she was Mother Earth, and the message was, I don't need you, you need me. And she was talking to humans. I will exist regardless of your practices, but you will not exist. So I think this is a very profound message. And it's a very interesting that I would really encourage the attendees to listen to it. This is one thing. The relationship between the just transition, whether it's environmental and social, we have to admit they are very much interrelated. And this is the premise, the main assumption of sustainability. It's environmental and social. They are very much interconnected. Climate change is about, climate change causes poverty, causes humans to be dislocated and displaced from their communities. Climate change destroys houses. Climate change causes starvation, drought. So there is an interrelationship between both. But the good point when we talk about climate change and climate justice is climate change, as much as it brings risks, it brings opportunities. And it all depends how we perceive it. If we sustain our existing business models, it will become a risk of detrimental environmental and social dimensions. But if we start to see it as a mega trend that introduces, that urges or requires profound revision of how businesses are being done, and start to reap its low-hanging fruits and leverage the opportunities, I think it can open job opportunities. It can improve our lifestyle. It can, and that's why I really appreciate discussing sustainability and climate change in a young environment, in an environment that brings in students and young minds, because you really need to challenge existing systems and existing practices. If we solve the climate change, we will solve poverty as well, and vice versa. So I think they are very much interrelated, and they only urge a fundamental overhaul of our existing system.
Okay, I think we're running a little bit out of time, but I would really, I appreciate, bank like CIB in a developing country is very different in operation than a European bank, where the whole quote unquote ecosystem the whole community understands what is what is a net zero. Why do banks need to sort of go into net zero? There are enough regulations, there are enough. So you're really talking about a big part of what you're trying to do is also building the awareness, is building the regulations, the support from all sides, from the civil society community, from the banks, the business resource organization, and the government and the regulation. So I really think that you're whatever you're doing, even though that people might compare it with a European bank, but the environment is very different. The environment is not mature, and you're trying to sort of, as part of others, of course, to sort of build the whole system, the whole ecosystem that needs to operate. Now, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
I have one reservation that I want to share, is that when I understand and appreciate what you're saying, definitely climate change, net zero have been conceived in Europe and the States, but the financial industry in Egypt is very resilient. And we have to always remind ourselves that the financial crisis was caused by financial institutions in Wall Street that were reckless about their products and their operations. Actually, I personally believe that the financial industry in Egypt, which was resilient, and we survived 2 revolutions, we survived the financial crisis, we continued to grow and continued to support our economies to grow. And we are in a very strong position to really and fundamentally revise banking practices. And in Egypt, you have witnessed several industry actors that were very much ahead with Egypt was the only country from the MENA region where that contributed to the principles for responsible banking. So we have a very resilient and strong and powerful financial sector. We have a sustainable development strategy. We have regulators that are very active. I would say it's a very ripe field. We just need to connect the dots. And if this happens, I think we can take it to the next level. So far, we have been approached by the GFANs to establish a chapter for the GFANs in Egypt. And I think ahead of COP27, if we just connect the dots, and I would really appreciate the input of Gerhard Center and the AUC in getting this community to create the much needed momentum and synergies. It's not easy, but if we really get together and share knowledge, I think we could be ahead of even systems abroad, because I mean, systems worldwide need to be revisited and challenged. We have the resilience and agility to do it. I believe so.
Thank you. Now we will have another poll on green bonds. Could you please launch the second poll, please, on green bonds? Lovely. So, mission accomplished, huh?
Yes.
Okay. So now let's go to Rami. Rami is going to talk about the implementation side. He's going to talk about how CIB implemented the net zero and the reporting. Rami, floor is yours, my dear.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. Just let me share my screen. Okay, I think I will start where Dr. Dalia ended. We're already, I think that everyone is a bit aware of the concept of the ecological footprint or the environmental footprint, because it's also known, ecological footprint is also known for the environmental footprint. And it's a pretty simple equation, it's supply and demand. Here is maybe this will explain further the concept of the ecological footprint. The Global Footprint Network, it's an international research organization. They have an initiative, it's an Earth Overshoot Day. Mainly each year, it marks the Global Footprint Network marks a date where that marks this date actually indicates when the human demand or the residents on planet Earth, their demand versus the produced and natural resources from planet Earth, and maybe I'm sorry, how long it will cover from you to satisfy the residents' needs. Well, as you can see here, Egypt on the November 25th. This is as of 2020. For example, Egypt on the 25th of November. Egypt itself actually covers the natural resources for its residents each year by until on the 25th of November. Okay, so what does this? There's an interesting fact in this. Actually, if of all countries, this was research done by the same organization. If all countries people live in Egypt, we would only need 1.1 Earth to cover the residents on the people's needs by each and every year. If all countries lived actually the same way that we live here in Egypt. Okay, moving forward. Now back to our topic, which is the ecological footprint. What was the purpose actually of conducting such report, and why the bank or why any organization or company should actually take the role to submit or to start preparing or conducting such report and to report on their environmental performance. Okay, first of all, there's climate change, as we already know. It's happening, and it's already has its risks and its negative impact on us. So technically now we needed to start act accordingly. We need to act first. The first important point is that we need to act according this towards climate change. Second of all, that we need to measure our carbon footprint. What is actually meaning by measuring our carbon footprint is actually to calculate the emitted emissions produced by the company and translate it into figures. These figures are mainly which is the carbon footprint is the CO2 emissions is emitted by each and every company. Okay, and this will trigger us and that will assist in the reduction of the greenhouse gas. How we can reduce and how we have now as a compass or as a guideline that we can actually follow after assessing and after disclosing our emissions and know where do we stand and to pinpoint the reduction targets that we can actually follow. This report would be able, or this tool will be able to help us to guide us through this map. Okay, last thing is listing in global sustainability indices. Okay, for now, if you can reflect to CIB since 2017 has been reporting on the carbon footprint, and it has been assisted us very much, this report and this tool, in advancing our list, our ranking in the sustainability indices. For instance, the CDP. Now, CIB has been reporting to CDP, which is the Carbon Disclosure Project. Carbon Disclosure Project is a sustainability index or sustainability platform that countries and cities and companies, they report on each and every year. They submit a questionnaire each and every year. We enhanced our ESG, our environmental performance in terms of the data to report on the carbon footprint yearly, and this helped us improving our ranking and our rating in across different sustainability indices. One of them was the CDP platform, and the CDP is actually considered as a golden platform to report for companies to report on their environmental aspect. Okay, the journey, as I mentioned earlier, the journey started back in 2017. We have produced our first carbon footprint report, and this report actually, this particular report was considered as a prototype, was a test and covered only 52 branches, mainly 2 zones, Alex and Giza. Why especially these 2 zones? Because they were the highest zones in terms of volume and walk-in customers and employees as well. And then in 2018, we've expanded the report and we covered all head offices and branches, 182 branches and around 4 or 5 main head offices. And there was an edge in this report as well. What was the edge? Was to set a target in reduction of greenhouse gas reduction by 2025. We had the commitment to reduce our emissions by 10% by 2025. Last year, we have issued the Ecological Footprint report for the year 2019-2020, and it was mainly evolving from carbon footprint to ecological footprint. As I mentioned earlier, it's about the converting the CO2 emissions or the carbon footprint from our activities and using it, stretching the scope, broadening the scope to even include the land footprint and water footprint. I will walk you through quickly through the 3 main pillars. The land footprint is mainly the total amount of land was utilized by CIB across Egypt or across the country. The second pillar which is the carbon footprint. It's the total amount of greenhouse gas emissions emitted from the company or from the bank. The carbon footprint is actually classified in 2 main sections. The first section is direct emissions and indirect emissions. The second was indirect emissions. Both sections has 3 scopes. The first scope is the direct emission. What does it represent? It represents mainly the emissions that are controlled or owned by a company or an entity. This is the first scope. The second scope is the indirect emissions. Indirect emissions emitted or the emitted from emissions from the purchased electricity, mainly for cooling, heating, etc. And then third scope is indirect emissions as well. Any other activity that falls under the entity. If we're going to reflect it on CIB, mainly we reported what falls under scope 3 is mainly the CIB fleet, is the transportation, the emissions sourced out from the waste disposal, as well as the courier shipments that we have. Okay, these are the three main scopes that we report on. Third pillar is the water footprint, which is the total water consumption, and the water footprint actually is classified into two sections: indirect water and direct water. Indirect water consumption is the water consumed by any organization or an entity, even their garden activities. And indirect water consumption, the water consumption that is used for production of energy production, such as chillers, water chillers, etc. So this is mainly the main three pillars that we've been reporting on this report. The previous reports we reported only, we've taken only into consideration our CO2 emissions according to something called greenhouse gas protocol. What is greenhouse gas protocol? Is a widely used protocol. It's a standard that you can for greenhouse gas accounting standard, and any private sector or as well public sector can also use the greenhouse gas protocol for their measurements and for their reporting. It's a standard reporting methodology. Okay, we'll take here a deeper look on the ecological footprint and its figures. Here, if you can see in this section, here we have the scope and the boundaries of the activities that we report on: paper consumption, water, refrigerant, leakage, and air travel, etc. The benefit, one of the main benefits of this, of expanding our reporting and using the ecological footprint methodology, is now we can use the scoped boundaries and activities across three different pillars. So you can measure, and it's a more of an empowering decision making tool that you can actually trigger across these three pillars: paper, land, carbon, and water. Each and every activity you can assess and measure where is the highest consumption, the highest percentage of consumption across these three pillars. For instance, if we can see paper consumption, we can see the land footprint. Here the paper consumption falls in the land footprint under forest land. The amount of land was deforested from our paper consumption usage. This is how it reflects on the land footprint. Moving to carbon footprint, moving to the water footprint. Why it's the highest percentage in the water footprint? Because simply it's the water in the production of the paper itself. When the manufacturing of paper, it uses, there is amount of water has to be added in the production line to produce any item of the whole sheets that we receive each and every year from our vendors. So basically, the highest percentage was reflecting on the water footprint side. If you can go for electricity consumption, as we can see, electricity consumption, it's another scenario. If we go to the land footprint, there's another category that falls under land footprint when it comes to CIB's boundaries. When we reported on this pillar, was carbon demand on land. What is carbon demand on land? It's mainly the total the energy consumption and the water consumption and the waste, also any products, sold products we use. This has to be converted into the amount of utilized material extracted or could be used on this land. So particularly, if you can see that the electricity consumption was the highest, the second highest percentage in land footprint. On carbon footprint was the highest, and then moving to the water footprint, because of course, as we have said, chillers, water chillers is part of the electricity generation and our electricity consumption. So it also involved. It's also involved the water consumption. It's also involved in the water footprint. So. To wrap up this section is mainly the activities and the boundaries of any company that will be reporting on its activities and its own operations. It will be cross-cutting all three categories. Sorry. Okay. how did we start, or how did we begin, and the steps? Actually, it's all not. I wanted to share with everyone our experience, our journey. How did it start? And it could be replicated or with different, of course, scenarios. First, when we were mandated to conduct a carbon footprint report for the bank, we didn't have the full information and the full background on how to actually report on this topic and on this file. And as well, we needed to set the boundaries or the methodology, or to come up with the report. So we needed to conduct or to do several research sessions on this topic. And of course, with the help of consultancy firms are specialized actually in this field, helped us to report according to the accepted standards and methodologies for environmental reporting, whether be it carbon footprint or ecological footprint. Moving to the second step was the multi-stakeholder engagement. This is a very important step in this project, is mainly to engage with the internal departments or relevant departments to get to embed or to get their buy-in, actually to let them support us in conducting this report, because this will move us to the third section, which is the data collection, because we needed how to start the data collection phase, which is actually, this is the most important point in this phase. In order to start the data collection, we need to engage with relevant departments. In CIB here, the main source data was the premises projects team, the HR, of course, the corporate services, and the facility management. They are the main source of data to provide us with the required data in order to develop the report. So the multi-stakeholder engagement needed a lot of awareness sessions were conducted, a lot of surveys were conducted in order to get their buy-in and to get them on board to assist us and support us in formulating the report, and to start by the data collection. Okay, data collection, as I mentioned, we need to be already in line with the relevant departments to start the data collection phase. And the last part is the report development, which actually only includes the content write-up and report design and quality and assurance on the report, of course. I just want to get back to the data collection I just want to highlight something that back in 2017 as well, the data collection, how did it start? It started with the very, very manual input. We needed to extract data from documentation, for example, the electricity consumption and water consumption, and to input the data into the tool that was developed back then. It was a very normal Excel sheet, which of course that was very, very, very time consuming. And by time and we further enhanced our reporting mechanism, and we developed an integrated sheet. This integrated sheet, it's updated annually across all the agreed scopes and agreed boundaries that any company will be eligible to report on. Okay, the challenges. The challenges are pretty much linked to the steps. First one was the first challenge was the stakeholder engagement, as you need to engage with the concerned departments that will assist the responsible department that will be responsible to report on the company's environmental footprint or environmental performance. You need to engage with multi-stakeholders, internal and external, seeking consultancy firms' assistance and technical assistance as well, and for accreditation purposes. This is the first challenge. The second challenge was the source of data. Relevancy and consistency of data is very important, because as I mentioned, that we have been through for the past 4 years, we have when we published, or when we actually produced our first report, which was as a prototype, we wanted this to be the test and the guideline that we will be following. And we found out that there was some sort of missing data, and that was the trial and error exercise, and that led us to publish the first 2018 report, which was the first consolidated report. So the source of data is very important, that you need to communicate, and you need to define what are the boundaries and what are the activities that we'll be reporting on. This is the source of data. Third point, which is which was Dr. Ali and Dr. Dalia were discussing, and Dr. Dalia mentioned that our contribution in the carbon footprint or the ecological footprint, greenhouse gases emissions that's being emitted and affecting the environment, it's very, very minimal, especially when it comes to financial sector. But this point, which is the incomplete scope, which is when we get back to, if we revert back to the slide, the couple of slides, we said under the carbon footprint, we have 3 main scopes: scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Scope 1 and 2 under direct emission. Scope 3 is under indirect emission. Okay, so scope 3 is when we report is incomplete, or let's say it didn't reach its maturity. Scope 3, when it comes to financial institutions, you need to be reporting on the finance projects or the lending portfolio. So currently, what we have published for the past 3 reports, we've been reporting on our own operations. We're still, there is still room of growth and to report and to start reporting on the lending portfolio. I'm sorry. The last thing I just want to as well share with you is the way forward, and what was the main benefit actually, and the edge as well of conducting such report is now we have as a compass, or let's say it's to refine our list of priorities, and now we've come up with a decarbonization action plan that we need to follow for the next 3, 4, 5 years. To reduce our emissions and to reach, let's say, carbon neutrality. Maybe, as I said, the first thing that we need to work on is improve our data mechanism, our data collection mechanism. We have been enhancing it for the past couple of years. However, now we tend to integrate a new digital tool that it's mainly it's real-time monitoring. What is the real-time monitoring? Is mainly that you can report, that you can report and you can extract your data on maybe weekly, monthly, annually basis. So what does this benefit? This benefits that you can trigger and the gaps and red flag areas that you can start implementing sustainable solutions, or you can start as well enhance this area, or enhance this particular gaps. The second thing is also implementing renewable energy solutions. We've been actually implementing several renewable energy solutions across the bank. I can mention that we have installed 5 PV cells on CIB head offices, and that was a key player actually, and was a very important project that reflected on CIB's electricity consumption and energy consumption. As well, there's a lot of points that we can actually tackle as well. There is reducing the material consumption and waste. We have already implementing, or in process of implementing, a solid waste management system across the bank. Recently, we have just activated CIB shredding cards, that we are shredding our cards that's being expired, or that has any manufacturer error. And this results in a huge amount of cards, of plastic cards that's now being recycled through recycling outlets. And this is of course reflects on the total emissions of CIB's greenhouse gases emissions, which it's a sort of an offsetting scheme on operations as well. And of course, the last section is related to that we need to focus on how we can develop our reporting and how we can expand scope 3, as I mentioned earlier. And there's a lot of there's a room of growth in this section, and in order to actually fully to provide a full comprehensive reporting on our ecological footprint next year. That's
Rami, I have one quick question. Sure. Which is, I mean, I can see how it impacted the operations of the branches.
Yes.
But again, for me, the major operation that the bank does is lending customers.
Definitely.
It's financing. Did this impact your financing, the way you finance clients? And there are very quick wins. I mean, there are clear projects that would have to do, for example, with solar, water saving, etc. So you don't have to sort of do a clear audit of the whole value chain of your investee, which could be expensive.
Okay. Yes, we do have actually a solar loan product. I'm not handling this file, but yes, we do have a solar loan for our individuals and our corporates. And this solar loan actually comes with a technical assistance and preferential rates that could be used by our corporate clients or our actually as well the individual clients. If you're speaking of which, yes, this such product already exists currently.
Okay,
Dr. Ali.
Yes, Dalia.
Allow me to comment on this point. Actually, what we currently have at CIB is a process by which environmental risk management system team in the bank, they guide the client as we go, how to improve their environmental impact to be eligible for our funding. I raised this point earlier, but this is a very systematic process by which we do not actually decline clients or sectors, but we do invest lots of time and lots of effort to guide them how to manage their footprint or how to improve their environmental practices, making sure they have the proper licenses, making sure that they have the best outcome. And in most cases, while what nominally seems like resistance or limiting framework, it's actually an eye-opener for our clients, and it's better for risk management. It improves CIB's risk management framework because we want to make sure that our lending does not backfire. It's not that we care about the environment, let's put it that way. It's that we care that our clients do not experience environmental risk that could backfire on them and definitely curtail their capacity to pay back. So it's a cyclical process, and what's right is right. So this is already embedded into our internal systems at the bank.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take a Q&A from the audience, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to allow each one in the audience in the same order that they are in to ask their questions. So the people administering the webinar will help me in unmuting people in the same order they are in the box. I'm going to start with Khalid. Could you unmute Khalid, please, and allow him to ask his question? Khalid, please.
Hello.
Start.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Khalid Aql. I'm project management consultant. I'm a consultant for the CIB credit department, also in many projects. Some of my recommendation when I'm reviewing the client visibility study applicant for the CIB for whatever financial facilities, I'm recommending for this type of those type of project. Like one of those projects, it was a textile business, and they are consuming a lot of water for the process. One of the recommendations was to go through a unit for the water treatment. A second one, I'm running after the solar energy that will save a lot for the electrical power consumption. So I did try before to communicate with the CIB responsible for the sustainable finance for sustainable project, but I didn't succeed for different time.
So
yes.
you want to be able to connect with one of them. I think what we can do, if you can send us an email, we'll pass it to Dalia later on, and they will put you with the appropriate.
Point.
The case not to easily communicate, I need I'm recommending to have more care about conducting awareness session, communicating with CIB client for that issue. So a lot of client that doesn't know any about CIB sustainable programs. This is
right.
my
yes, thank you so much. You're very right. We are not, we need to communicate more, and your assistance will be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Khaled. Hani El-Shahawi, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes,
please.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Dalia. Very, very nice overview, and the other speaker for for the details. My question, I really like the broad focus, especially upfront, on sustainability and sort of the broad direct and indirect ecological footprint. Where I'm missing a little bit is, it's really getting distilled very much to carbon footprint. Whereas, of course, there's a lot of visibility around that, giving COP and that, but that's really only a small part of the, the broader ESG space, as I'm sure you'll understand. And, even with energy transition efforts sort of picking up pace, that does not come at zero impact, right? So hopefully there is consideration for all these broader aspects, including, as Dr. Aouni pointed out earlier, the social impact. Because in principle, as you pointed out, yes, there should be job creation on the long term and prosperity for all, but in the short to intermediate term, that may not be the case. There may be some job losses and income destruction as well. So that's really the nature of my question. Is there consideration then to broaden the this footprint to encompass more than just carbon footprint and the really, the things that are narrowly related to that?
Dr. Ali, if I may comment or answer.
Please go ahead.
Hani, you're very right. I mean, that's why CIB evolved from carbon footprint to ecological footprint, as Rami explained. So we're not only minded by the carbon footprint, because as you rightfully mentioned, it's the land footprint, it's the water footprint, it's not just that. And it's not only the environmental footprint, the social footprint, as Dr. Ali mentioned. Our next report, so this report, 2020 Ecological Footprint, is an upgrade of the carbon footprint. And it takes into consideration our land and water footprint, everything that has to do with the ecology. But also next report, I hope it will take into consideration the social impact. How much do we take from the society to generate our 12, 13 billion pounds as profit? Here, gender is taken into consideration, how we treat our outsourced companies, whether they have insurance, how to make sure that they have medical coverage, they are well paid. So the ecological footprint is, yes, environmental, ecological in the broad sense, and even social, because sometimes corporates really do injustice to other individuals as workers, as laborers, as child, and this should be taken into consideration. You're very right. Our 2020 ecological footprint covers the environmental span, and the next footprint will cover our social footprint as well. And reaching net zero is far-fetched, I tend to agree. Even if we do all mitigation efforts and we are confidently, there will remain a residue. And this is where offsetting carbon will come in place. Now it's not recommended, and some regulations put a cap on offsetting. Offsetting means buying my way out, because there is a limit to how much I can limit my carbon footprint. At one point of time, I will have to buy to offset my carbon footprint, invest in plantations, invest in anything that minimizes carbon. Hopefully, this is still a learning curve, and that's why we really appreciate the interaction and thinking, how can we really reach the net zero, making sure that we grow but with the earth in mind. Thank you, Hani.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Noura Shahata.
Yes, hi everyone.
Let's try to make it quick, Noura, please. Yani a
Yes,
minute.
yes. I was actually intrigued by Ms. Dalia when she was saying that there are programs that are sustainable sectors programs that are available for investees before entering or applying for a loan, right? I was actually wanted to know more about these programs. Are they a part of the lending process, or this is just an optional for the investors, or is just a part of an ESMS product or line of credit? Is it applied on all investors that are applying for any kind of loan, even if it's not part of any environmental project? I want to know more about it.
It's part, Noura, it's part of our advocacy to raise awareness about environmental and social risk management and climate change. And we decided that it's currently offered to our clients and potential clients or any corporate in any sector. So please identify which sector do you belong to, and we can keep connected. We just launched the first workshop, and we're currently about to launch the second workshop. It just gives us a taste of the challenges faced by sectors. And at the end, they see the business case of sustainability and of climate change and the environmental and social risk management system. And it's beautiful because you will never be able to change systems unless you engage the whole ecosystem and all stakeholders. So please, I mean, there's no limitation to any corporate who wants to be part of it. Just make sure that it is relevant to your sector. Thank you.
Kareem Shazli, please.
Hi, everyone. Actually, my question was also about the lending, the loan in particular, after the new integration law passed on by the Minister of Electricity. So yeah, it was already answered that you already have the program, and but maybe my question is, it like will it change after the new law, because now it is less feasible to have a solar project in Egypt? So do you intend on changing the rates, for example, the lending rates, or will you just keep it stable? Maybe this is my question.
Oh, Kareem, right now we have not decided to revise the pricing of the loan given the new regulations. However, as a broad remark that I want to make is, when it comes to new sustainable sectors like renewable energy or energy efficiency, the business case is in the benefit and in the bottom line. Sometimes we are intimidated by regulatory hindrances, by pricing that's too expensive. But really, this should not deter us from taking the first step, because this is the new way forward. This is where growth lies. So my advice for corporates or even consumers, you remember everything when it's newly introduced, it seems expensive, but in time you see that it is good value for money and that the initial investment was worthwhile. So definitely it's an area of advocacy, and the more we connect with regulators, the more we, and this is a role CIB is willingly enthusiastic to take, because to make the change happens, as much as we revise our internal structures and processes, we raise awareness, we also advocate with regulators. So please join forces and let's make the change happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kareem. Amr Abdullah, please. Amr, try to make it quick, please. The floor is yours, my dear. Amr, can you say a question, please? Can we unmute Amr, please? Okay. The next one is our own Wafa Sabri.
Hello, Dr. Dalia, Dr. Ali. Very interesting talk. Thank you very much. My question was, what is the CIB doing in terms of educating their clients about their business model, the sustainable business model? Because I myself is a very old customer of CIB, and I was not aware as a CIB customer that this was going on. I only got to know about it when we started working together on that initiative. So I think it's very a good initiative to start educating the public on part of CIB on this, and to act as a role model for other banks to follow suit.
Well, Wafa, we really need your help to communicate and to raise awareness. There are lots of things that, I mean, maybe that's why Business Forward and having this discussion is a good platform to spread things around. So please, your assistance would be appreciated. Definitely we can take it a few steps forward. I would not expect that this webinar would be the last. I would really appreciate joining hands with the audience and with the AUC and Business Forward and Gerhardt Center to advocate this even ahead of COP27. I think there are so many hanging fruits. If we just join forces, really the change could take place in Egypt. I can see we're very much there. So please help us communicate. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm going to take the last question from Muhammad Abbas. Please ask your question, Muhammad. Try to be brief, please.
Hello. Briefly, how can CIB protect itself from money laundering from customers? And what is interest rate on the bond issue, the latest green bond issue, and what are the interest rate on green loans that CIB get it to customers?
These are three questions. With regards to money laundering, which is very, very good that you raised this point, because sustainability has governance. We have three pillars in sustainability: the environment and the social, which we have been talking about, and governance issue. CIB, since this is part and parcel of the CIB culture to have very strict regulations guarding against fraud. It's not within my area, but the governance and compliance departments are very much ahead of it. With regards to the interest rates on the green bonds, they are set on case-by-case basis according to the client and the feasibility study that's being conducted. With regards to sustainability loans, this is something CIB is currently working on, because apart from the green bond being the first private sector bank issuing green bonds, we are right now very much focused on issuing a portfolio of sustainable finance loans and products, and this is going on. It needs some innovation, but I think it was very, issuing a green bond in 2020 and 2021 at the peak of COVID crisis is very much indicative of the resilience of the institution, and the fact that even in times of crisis, you never stop innovating. This is the only way out to fight crisis. The real crisis is when you stop innovating or issuing new products. And so far, we are progressing ahead, issuing new loans. The pricing is set case by case. Thank you.
Okay, let's just take one last. There is one from the attendees raising his hand. I think it's Ahmed Al-Gohari. Would you unmute him? Ahmed, please ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dalia and Dr. Ali. As Dr. Dalia said, banks have minimal footprint, as our footprint is mainly concentrated in our core banking operations. I have two questions. The first one, I believe that CIB assesses new projects, but does CIB perform as an environmental audit to existing projects on a regular basis or not? The second question is, what does the loan officers at CIB do in case the audit or the environmental assessment report shows that there is environmental risks within the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmed. To answer your question, yes, we have a very rigid environmental and social risk management audit that takes place. We can classify our projects to A, B, C. We apply the IFC performance standards. And right now we're also about to apply the TCFD, which is climate change risk disclosures, into our auditing process. Yes, this is very rigorous, and Rami is part of this team. We have a very a professional team, and mind you, they are not only financiers, they are environmentalists as well. And this is a main comment that I would like to frame: is it's high time for banks to get environmental experts on board. This is very important. So yes, we have a well-grounded unit to audit. As I mentioned earlier, we do not tend to decline loans or clients. We just guide them how to mitigate, how to improve their environmental footprint. In most cases, they understand and they cope. If they do not, because what we're basically communicating is complying with laws and regulations, national rules and regulations, complying with best practices. So it's kind of lending advice to our clients. In most cases, it's minimal rejection. I mean, we do not recall maybe 1%. So this is not a showstopper for banks. On the contrary, it opens new horizons for new business in growing sectors like energy efficiency and renewable energy, because this is where growth lies. And yes, we audit, and it's not a showstopper. Thank you.
I think this is where the role of regulations and laws applies, because I see your point. I mean, it's you're either there is an extra overhead of an audit, and then there is an extra opportunity of lending your money. So this is going to be a barrier. I mean, the only way is to sort of make this barrier across to everyone. Then it's just part of the cost of doing business, that you do the audit and you don't provide investment except for environmentally sustainably worthy clients. End of story. But anyway, I really thank you both. We're going to now take our last poll. We'll wrap up in 5 minutes or so. So if you're going to spill over, we're going to spill over 2 or 3 minutes. We're just going to take our last poll. I guess again, mission accomplished, huh? Okay, so in the end, I would want to pass it to Dalia first and then to Rami. Please, I want you to sort of just cap it with your final comment. Try to make it in a minute or two. Dalia, floor is yours first.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ali. I think my concluding comment is that climate change introduces risks and opportunities, and it is a mega trend which mandates that we fundamentally revise how businesses are being done. Climate change is not a crisis. It will be a crisis, and a huge one, if we do not revise our policies and practices. As much as it brings risks, it brings opportunities. But we should all redesign our business models with Earth in mind to be able to sustain our growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Dalia. Rami, please.
Thank you, Dr. From a very decent point of view, actually, I urge all the companies and or the attendees at least they can start act and to respond back to climate change. And as we said, that banks, we take us for example, has a very, very minimal impact. So even if you can contribute with a very, very minimal step or take a bold step towards this climate change, I believe it will count and it will be taken into consideration as well. So we started it. I believe that any industry can be able to conduct such or to undergo the same practice, and we are here. Everyone can reach out at any time. We will be able to assist, and we will be happy to assist as well.
Thank you, Rami. Now, in the end, I just want to thank Dr. Dalia, Rami, really for a very interesting webinar, and I hope it opened many ways of different thinking about the sustainability at large. I thank Business Forward for adopting and sponsoring this webinar and promoting the concept of a responsible business. I thank you all for attending, and I hope to see you in many future events for Business Forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dalia. Thank you, Rami. Thank you, Business.
Thank you, Dr. Ali. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you all for participating. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.